There is a moment, quiet and almost imperceptible, when a person realizes that the outer world is not speaking the truth about who they are, and that realization is often the beginning of a deeper awakening. You may have felt it yourself, that strange tension between what you hold inside and what life seems to echo back to you. You want to trust your inner vision, but the world keeps showing you pieces of an identity you're trying to leave behind. And a part of you wonders if you're doing something wrong, if the absence of confirmation means the desire isn't real. But listen closely. That discomfort, that contradiction, that confusion, it isn't a sign that you're off track. It's the exact terrain every conscious creator walks through before clarity arrives. You've heard people tell you to follow the signs, but no one tells you that most of the signs you first encounter are nothing more than reflections of your unresolved inner patterns. Not warnings, not predictions, just the world replaying what your subconscious still holds as familiar. Neville called this the mirror principle. Everything external is an afterimage of what you have accepted within yourself. Everyone you meet, whether they cheer for you, doubt you, or give you advice that pulls you off your path, is only reflecting the identity you've lived with long enough for it to become your energetic signature. They don't see your future. They see the version of you you've rehearsed the longest. And that can be painfully confusing when you're trying to shift into a higher state, while others still echo the older one. You've also felt those strange repetitions, those symbolic patterns, those inexplicable nudges that appear in dreams or in quiet emotional whispers. Certain numbers, certain situations, certain words showing up again and again. You've wondered whether they're clues or coincidences or illusions. But here's the truth. They are none of those. They are diagnostics of consciousness, neutral indicators revealing the organization of your inner state. They don't reward you for doing something right, and they don't punish you for doing something wrong. They simply show you what is active within you. When you understand this, you stop chasing meaning in the outer world, and you start reading the subtler movements of your inner world. The dots never lie to you. They reflect the coherence or fragmentation of your inner structure, long before physical reality catches up. What hurts the most is how easy it is to seek validation outside. You hold a beautiful assumption inside, maybe one you barely dare to believe in, yet the world mirrors your doubts faster than your dreams. You want reassurance, support, confirmation, but instead you meet your oldest fears in human form. A friend questioning your choices, a family member projecting their limitations onto you, a mentor warning you about risks, and suddenly your desire feels fragile again, almost naive, not because it is fragile, but because your subconscious still expects the world to tell you who you are. When you look outside for certainty, you step away from the sacred place where manifestation actually happens. There's a reason the first things that rise to the surface are doubts, fears, and old memories. Bruce Lipton explains that your subconscious programs, formed long before you developed conscious awareness, filter everything you perceive. Your nervous system prioritizes what feels familiar, not what feels empowering. So when you adopt a new assumption, whether it's abundance, love, success, or worthiness, the subconscious reacts by replaying old filters first. Not because your desire is unreachable, but because your identity hasn't yet learned how to recognize the new state as safe. And this is where the conflict truly begins, the conflict between what you desire and who you still believe yourself to be. Desire is the preferred state. Identity is the memorized state. Desire expands. Identity resists. You feel the pull of your future self, yet the gravity of your old self tugging at your ankles. The world mirrors that tension faithfully. Inconsistencies, mixed signals, delays, confusing interactions. It isn't deception, it's feedback. Consciousness reorganizes itself internally long before the physical world reorganizes externally. And in that space between the old and the new, the dots begin to appear. Subtle, quiet, precise. They arrive before results because inner order always precedes outer form. So take a breath. Feel your body soften for a moment. You are not lost. You are not failing. You are witnessing the invisible architecture of your inner world rearranging itself. And as you continue this journey, you will start to understand something profound. The outer world often lies to you because it is late, but the dots never do. They appear the moment your consciousness begins to shift. They are the first proof that your new identity is forming. They are the quiet signature of alignment, long before the world can reflect it. There is a moment, right after you dare to assume a new inner state, when life seems to push back instead of opening. It feels almost unfair. You make a quiet decision inside yourself, maybe for more abundance, more inner calm, more recognition, more love, and instead of receiving a gentle confirmation, you meet tension, an unexpected bill, a conversation that shakes your confidence, a piece of news that brings uncertainty, a familiar fear crawling back into your chest, and you wonder if the universe is rejecting your desire. But nothing could be further from the truth. What rises first is never confirmation. It is the echo of the identity you are dissolving. When Neville spoke of the bridge of incidents, he never promised that the first steps would feel smooth. He knew that the moment consciousness shifts, the old self reacts. Not from malice, from habit. There is a hidden blockade that appears when you begin to embody a new assumption. You expect the world to mirror your new truth immediately, but the world is still reflecting your former self. Your old patterns have momentum. They have history, repetition, emotional grooves carved through years of survival and adaptation. So when you assume abundance, the first signs may look like lack. When you assume love, the first reactions may look like distance. When you assume success, the first situations may feel like setbacks. This isn't punishment, it is inertia, identity inertia. The part of you that learned to expect disappointment tries to protect you by reminding you of the familiar. The part of you that adapted to scarcity tries to pull you back to the known. The part of you trained to avoid hope whispers the same old story because it feels safer than entering the unknown territory of a new self. And here is the paradox most people never understand. Alignment does not feel good at first. It disrupts the emotional patterns that kept you safe, even if they kept you small. When your old self-image begins to crumble, your nervous system interprets that expansion as danger. So the first inner sensation may not be excitement. It may be uneasiness or resistance, or a quiet trembling beneath your ribs. You are not failing when this happens. You are transitioning. You are stepping out of a memorized emotional home. And even when that home was built from lack, doubt, or fear, it was still familiar and the body clings to what it knows. There is a way to move through this moment with clarity rather than panic. When the old echo shows up, pause. Feel the resistance without identifying with it. In that small pocket of stillness, let the new identity breathe. This is the moment when you gently interrupt the automatic reaction. This inner rehearsal is subtle but powerful. You catch the old story before it takes over. You revise the scene in real time. You picture yourself responding from the self who already has, not from the self who is still hoping. You speak from the new identity. You breathe from it. You carry yourself for a brief moment as the one who has already crossed the bridge. With repetition, your nervous system begins to register the new emotional signature as normal rather than threatening. And if you need an image to hold on to during these early days, imagine a thermostat. When you adjust it to a new temperature, the room does not instantly become warm or cool. It oscillates. It dips below. It rises above. It corrects. It recalibrates. Only after the oscillation does it stabilize into the new setting. Your consciousness works the same way. Resistance is not a sign that the temperature is wrong. It is a sign that the shift is underway. The old self is recalibrating. The new self is emerging. And the world is beginning to rearrange itself around the identity you are daring to claim. There comes a point in your awakening when you begin to notice something unsettling. The people around you seem to speak with the voice of your past. Their words, their doubts, their advice, even their silences, feel strangely familiar. It is as if they are echoing the very fears you've been trying to release, and in a moment of vulnerability, you might believe they are seeing something in you that you cannot see. But pause for a moment. What if they are not seeing you at all? What if they are seeing the version of you that your energy has rehearsed for years? Most of the world responds to the identity you've embodied the longest, not the identity you are stepping into now. They interact with your patterns, not your potential, and that is why their words can feel so heavy when you are trying to expand. You take their advice personally, but the truth is that they are perceiving you through the lens of your old vibrational signature. You might assume they are offering clarity, yet they are only mirroring familiarity. This is the hidden blockade no one explains. People reflect the version of you they have memorized, and that version often lingers much longer in their perception than in your own inner transformation. They speak to the one who doubted herself. They respond to the one who lived in scarcity. They react to the one who suppressed desires to stay safe. Even when your inner world is shifting, their words still echo the past, because external perception is always delayed. Not malicious, just slow. There is a simple but profound truth that reshapes everything once you understand it. Others are not projecting their limitations onto you. They are projecting your former self-image back at you. This is the Pygmalion echo, the world sculpting you according to the mold you once held as true. And in those moments when someone questions your capacity or dismisses your dream or warns you against change, the deepest invitation is not to argue with them, but to turn inward and ask a quieter, more liberating question. What part of me are they reflecting? Their doubt is a mirror of the doubt you once carried. Their hesitation is a memory of your former identity. Their worry is the residue of the self you are no longer choosing to be. Instead of resisting them, you begin to witness them as reminders of the identity you are releasing. When you recognize people as delayed mirrors, something shifts inside you. You stop taking their reactions as prophecies and start seeing them as recordings, old audio playing after you've already changed the script. And in this awareness, a new kind of power emerges. After an interaction that pulls you back into old patterns, you take a quiet moment to breathe into the new identity. You let the scene replay inside your imagination, but this time, you choose to inhabit the self who has already become the person you are assuming. Their words soften, your responses shift, the emotional tone transforms. You create an internal version that aligns with the life you are calling in. This subtle internal adjustment begins to overwrite the outdated echoes, and eventually the world adjusts because it must follow the identity you consistently embody. Picture it like this. Someone plays an old recording of your voice. It does not matter how loudly it plays, it does not matter how many times it repeats. It is still an outdated version, preserved by repetition, not by truth. And while that recording plays, you are already speaking with a new tone, standing in a new posture, feeling from a new self-image. With time, the old recording loses its relevance. People adjust, the world adjusts, reality adjusts, because the present version of you becomes stronger than the memory of who you used to be. There is a subtle moment on the path of creation when reality begins to shimmer differently. You notice small repetitions, gentle echoes, symbols that seem to follow you from day to day, a phrase overheard in passing, a number that keeps appearing at the corner of your eye, a dream that repeats itself with quiet persistence. And yet, a part of you hesitates to trust these patterns. They feel too delicate, too soft, too easily dismissed as coincidence. You wonder whether you're imagining them, whether you're reading too much into nothing. But the truth is far more intimate. These subtle signs do not appear because something outside is sending you clues. They appear because something inside you has finally begun to align. The patterns surface when your inner world starts to organize itself around the assumption you have chosen. The hidden blockade is that you have been conditioned to believe synchronicities must be dramatic to be meaningful. Lightning flashes, grand revelations, immediate confirmations. But consciousness rarely works with theatrics. It works with coherence. When your inner state becomes more consistent, your perceptual system awakens to what has always been there. The mind begins to recognize patterns it previously filtered out. The heart becomes more receptive to the emotional tone behind events. Subtlety becomes noticeable. Familiarity becomes intentional. What once looked random begins to feel like a quiet conversation between your inner world and your outer reflection. And yet, even in this delicate unfolding, doubt can creep in. You worry that you're misinterpreting everything or assigning meaning where none exists. But doubt doesn't mean the signs are false. It means your nervous system is adjusting to a new way of perceiving. As your identity shifts, something remarkable happens inside your brain. Your reticular activation system, the mechanism that filters what you notice, begins to highlight anything that resonates with your new assumption. Not because the universe suddenly sends you signals, but because you are finally attuned to receive what matches your chosen state. It is like tuning a radio station. The frequencies were always there, but now you hear the ones aligned with your new identity. Synchronicities are not hints from outside. They are reflections of your internal order. They are consciousness revealing the patterns already forming within you. And the closer you come to fully embodying your desired state, the more these patterns gather around you, as if forming constellations of meaning in your daily life. There is power in observing these recurring symbols with a quiet mind, not analyzing them, not hunting for clues, but recognizing their emotional resonance. When a certain image or theme repeats itself, it is because it carries a vibration connected to the state you are entering. These patterns bridge your current identity with the one you are becoming. They whisper the shape of your expanding self. They show you where your attention naturally flows when you stop forcing outcomes. You begin to see connections not because you are trying to, but because your inner world is becoming coherent enough for the connections to reveal themselves. Imagine yourself standing under a night sky. The stars are scattered, countless, and unrelated. But when something inside you seeks meaning, you begin to trace invisible lines between them. You form constellations, shapes, symbols. The stars did not change. Your perception did. Synchronicities work the same way. The world has always contained these points of resonance, but now your inner state links them into a pattern, not because the universe needed to speak louder, but because you finally slowed down enough to hear the language it always used. And when these patterns begin to intensify, it is not a prediction of what may come. It is evidence of what is already unfolding within you. There are seasons in your inner journey when everything feels fragile, when even neutral events seem charged with warning, and the smallest delay can feel like a sign that life is slipping away from you. You look at a message that arrives late, and your chest tightens. You check your bank account, and a quiet panic rises. You hear nothing from the opportunity you were hoping for, and your mind fills the silence with stories of loss. In these moments, the world feels hostile, uncertain, unpredictable, but the truth is simpler and far more compassionate. Scarcity is not a reflection of reality. It is a reflex, a learned emotional posture, a subconscious expectation that turns neutral events into threats. And when this reflex activates, the dots become distorted. You stop reading alignment and start reading fear. Scarcity conditions the body to anticipate loss, even when nothing is being lost. It rewires your perception so deeply that even the gentlest pauses in life feel like danger. This is why you misinterpret signs, not because they are misleading, but because your nervous system has been trained to defend itself from disappointment. If you grew up around instability, unpredictability, or emotional inconsistency, your body learned to search for danger before it learned to search for possibility. That habit doesn't vanish overnight. It lingers in the background, shaping your interpretations, influencing your reactions, coloring your assumptions with old memories. And when you hold a beautiful desire inside you, scarcity rises to protect you from being hurt again. It shrinks your vision to keep you safe. Attachment theory explains something profound here. When the mind has been conditioned to associate uncertainty with danger, the body responds with hyper-awareness. The smallest delay feels threatening. The most benign change feels like abandonment. You read silence as rejection, and you read stillness as decline. Not because your intuition is wrong, but because your emotional memory is still louder than your inner truth. And here lies the twist almost no one speaks about. Fear often appears strongest when your manifestation is already in motion. When you are closest to receiving what you asked for, the subconscious panics at the thought of losing it. The old identity clings to familiar emotions, even if they are painful, because the unknown, even the beautiful unknown, feels unsafe to a nervous system trained in scarcity. In these moments, there is a way to return to clarity, not by forcing positivity, but by grounding yourself back into presence. A slow, steady breath through the body becomes a quiet doorway into truth. When you let air move gently in, you give your nervous system permission to soften its vigilance. When you let air move gently out, you release the tightness that distorts your perception. Something loosens in your chest. Your thoughts become less frantic. The event you feared begins to look less threatening, and in that softening, you begin to see the dots for what they are. Neutral indicators of inner movement, not warnings of outer danger. Imagine a person wandering through a desert with an empty canteen. Their thirst becomes so intense that their eyes start to imagine water where there is none. They see shapes that dissolve as they approach. They trust illusions because their fear amplifies the landscape. Scarcity works the same way. When you fear losing what you desire, you start seeing mirages. You mistake shadows for signs. You confuse pauses for endings. But once the thirst calms, once the body feels safe again, the mirages fade, and the path becomes visible. You begin to trust the gentle order unfolding beneath the surface. You begin to see that the dots were never leading you astray. It was the scarcity reflex that blurred your vision. And now, as it loosens its grip, you reclaim the clarity that was always waiting beneath the fear. There are nights when your inner world speaks louder than your waking thoughts, when the stories that unfold behind your closed eyes feel more honest than the ones you tell yourself during the day. You may wake from a dream feeling unsettled, or strangely peaceful, or deeply emotional for reasons you cannot explain. And in the rush of morning, you might dismiss it all as randomness, as the leftover noise of a tired mind. But the truth is far more intimate. Your dreams are not chaos. They are mirrors. They pull forward the parts of you that don't yet align with the identity you're trying to embody. They expose the hidden emotions that remain unintegrated. They reveal the patterns your conscious mind is not ready to admit. And in that gentle exposure, there is guidance. Most people overlook this inner language because it does not always appear divine or spiritual. Dreams can feel messy. They can feel emotional. They can feel strange or symbolic or fragmented. But that is precisely why they matter. What appears chaotic on the surface often carries precision beneath it. And the hidden blockade is that you expect spiritual clarity to look beautiful, serene, or radiant. You expect your inner guidance to arrive in neat revelations, yet the psyche speaks through metaphors, sensations, and symbols that bypass logic. It shows you the emotional truths your conscious identity tries to manage or hide. It shows you where your assumption is strong and where it is still shaking. And when you ignore these dreams, you overlook one of the clearest indicators of your inner alignment. Jung understood this with extraordinary clarity. He saw that dreams compensate for the imbalances in your waking identity. If your conscious mind claims confidence, while your inner world trembles with doubt, your dreams will reveal the tremble. If your conscious mind says you are abundant, but your emotional body still holds scarcity, your dreams will show you the fear. And here lies the revelation. Your dreams often align with your new state before your waking personality does. The subconscious adjusts faster than the conscious mind, because it does not need to negotiate with logic, habit, or self-image. It simply reflects the emotional truth of what is being activated inside you. So when your dreams begin to shift, when their tone changes, when new symbols or recurring themes emerge, something in you is already reorganizing. There is a quiet and powerful way to understand these inner messages without overanalyzing them. When a dream lingers with you, when an image refuses to fade, it is because it holds an emotional code that relates directly to your becoming. Beneath the symbols lies a behavior, a pattern, or a belief that is asking to be acknowledged. You look at the dream figure not as a character, but as an aspect of yourself. You look at the scene not as a prediction, but as a reflection of your inner climate. This gentle inquiry reveals the places where your alignment is strong and the places where it is still settling into coherence. And with each recognition, your inner world becomes clearer. Your emotional field becomes less fragmented. Your identity becomes more unified. Imagine your dreams as weather forecasts for your consciousness. They show you whether a storm is passing, whether the winds are changing, whether the climate inside you is warming toward the state you are assuming. And just as the atmosphere rearranges before the sky reflects the new weather, your dreams rearrange before your outer world reveals the shift. They give you glimpses of the internal patterns forming beneath the surface. They offer you a preview of where your alignment is heading. And when you begin to appreciate their subtle guidance, you notice that they are not random at all. They are signals, they are indicators, they are messages from the deeper self you are stepping into. And they whisper the truth your waking mind sometimes forgets. You are already changing, you are already aligning, you are already moving toward the version of you you've dared to assume. There is a form of inner tension that disguises itself as dedication. You tell yourself you're staying aligned, yet each moment feels like a quiet test. You monitor your thoughts, watch for signs, and scan the world for confirmation, hoping to feel closer to what you desire. On the surface, it looks like commitment, but beneath it lies a restlessness that drains your clarity. Instead of trusting your inner state, you begin watching your life as if it might slip away when you're not looking. This happens because anticipation activates the body faster than trust. The mind loops through possibilities, waiting for evidence that you're on the right path. But waiting reinforces the belief that something is missing. When Neville spoke of living from the end, he wasn't asking you to be vigilant. He was inviting you into a state where checking becomes unnecessary. When you stop searching for reassurance, the nervous system softens, and your inner world becomes steady enough for synchronicities to arise naturally. Think of transformation like water warming on a stove. It doesn't boil because you stare at it. It boils because heat gathers quietly. Manifestation responds the same way. The more you release the need to monitor it, the more effortlessly it unfolds. There are moments on this path when you feel heavier, not lighter, and you question whether you're slipping backward. You assume a new identity. You begin to feel its truth, and suddenly an unexpected wave of sadness, doubt, or fatigue rises. It can feel like losing progress, but what you're experiencing is the nervous system releasing an old emotional architecture. The familiar self does not vanish quietly. It trembles as it loosens its grip. What you call regression is often the final resistance of a state that no longer fits you. Neuroplasticity explains this with remarkable clarity. The brain preserves what it knows because familiarity feels efficient, even when it limits you. When you embody a new assumption, abundance, confidence, worthiness, the neural pathways that supported the former identity begin to destabilize. This destabilization doesn't feel like expansion at first. It feels like withdrawal, as if something inside you is being pulled away. And in a sense, it is. The emotional habits that once defined you are dissolving. In those moments, the most powerful thing you can do is let the new state take up more space within you. When you return, even briefly, to the feeling of who you are becoming, the nervous system receives a new reference point. With repetition, the discomfort fades, not because you forced it away, but because the old self no longer has anything left to hold on to. It releases you, and you rise into the identity that has been waiting behind the resistance. There is a moment in every transformation when the outer world appears unchanged, yet your inner state is already reshaping itself. What feels like delay is often the silent phase where alignment deepens. Just as water heats long before it boils, your consciousness organizes long before results appear. Neville understood this well. Assumption matures within before it reflects without. When things look still, it is often because you are stabilizing into the self that can receive what you have already claimed. There are moments when signs feel scattered, not because guidance is absent, but because your inner world is sending two signals at once. Desire moves in one direction, while identity pulls in another, creating a subtle static that interrupts what should be clear. The Galatea effect shows this well. Reality follows self-image more than intention. When you settle into a single, coherent identity, the fragmentation dissolves, the field aligns, and the dots, once scattered, begin forming a clear pattern again. There is a moment when your inner world stops searching and begins resting, not from resignation, but from clarity. The new identity no longer feels like something you're reaching for. It feels natural, steady, almost familiar. This is cognitive assimilation, the emotional neutrality that appears when your chosen state becomes your default. In that quiet stabilization, three things align at once: your self-image, your emotional tone, and your intuitive certainty. When they converge, the dots no longer appear scattered. They begin forming a coherent pattern. There is a moment when you stop seeking outer reassurance and understand that the world is only echoing who you once were. Neville taught that physical reality lags behind, while the subtle signs reflect your current state. As your subconscious shifts, perception reorganizes, and synchronicities form a quiet, undeniable pattern. The dots reveal your present identity and the inevitability of what follows.